Thank you for tuning in to leaddeveloper.com, where we simplify complex property development feasibilities, investment analysis, and everything real estate. Whether you're a seasoned pro or just starting out, our Google Sheets-based feasibility suite streamlines the toughest aspects of real estate. Lead Developer Feasibility Suite is trusted by thousands in over 17 countries. Our tools cover everything from quick assessments to detailed cash flow projections and more. Sign up today at leaddeveloper.com for unlimited free access to our expanding library of real estate tools. No credit card needed. Plus, get full support through Edge with step-by-step guidance, exclusive courses, and resources designed for your success. Turn numbers into narratives that win over investors and lenders. Join Lead Developer now.
All right, let's get right into it. Today, we're taking a deep dive into raw land development.
Oh, all right.
And, you sent us this huge article.
Yeah.
Clearly for people like you who are interested in getting into this world. And it's got so much in it from start to finish.
Right.
So we're going to try to break it down for you.
Okay.
And hopefully help you decide if this is something you even want to do.
That's good.
We're going to talk about everything from, that initial land purchase
Right.
to when you're marketing the final product.
Yeah.
And even some kind of unexpected things along the way.
Like what?
Like, the psychology of design
Yeah.
and how that comes into play, or
That's okay.
how, communities can push back against a project.
Yeah, that could be a big problem for developers.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So, what I find interesting is that the people who get into raw land development,
Yeah.
it seems like it's a very specific type of person.
You're right. It often attracts a certain kind of individual. It's not your average investor or someone just flipping houses.
Yeah.
It's someone with a real entrepreneurial drive. Someone who sees an empty field and envisions a vibrant community.
Right. It's like they see potential where other people just see like dirt.
Exactly. They thrive on taking risks and shaping the future.
That's so true. It's like they're artists, but instead of paintbrushes, they've got bulldozers.
Uh-huh. I like that analogy.
But before we go too far,
Yeah.
the article starts off by saying, land is a finite resource,
Mhm.
especially with cities growing and growing.
Right.
So is vacant land actually like a good investment?
Well, land scarcity definitely drives value, but there are two main approaches to think about. One is land speculation, and the other is redevelopment and resale.
Okay, so what's the difference?
Land speculation is like gambling. You're betting that external factors like zoning changes or future demand will make the land more valuable. It's high risk, high reward.
So it's like buying a lottery ticket and hoping you hit the jackpot?
Uh-huh, kind of. But then there's redevelopment and resale. This is where you take raw land, develop it into something new,
Yeah.
and then sell it for a profit.
So that's more like taking something and adding value to it yourself.
Right, precisely.
It's
But actively transforming the land and creating something new.
That makes sense. And the article talks about some pretty impressive profits.
It does, especially when developers manage to navigate the whole rezoning process.
Yeah, rezoning can be a game changer, can't it?
Oh, absolutely. Imagine buying farmland on the edge of town, and then boom, it gets rezoned for commercial use.
Yeah.
Suddenly you're sitting on a gold mine.
Talk about a good return on investment.
Right. But it's not all sunshine and roses. There are significant risks involved,
Yeah, the article definitely doesn't shy away from that.
and it shouldn't. You've got holding costs, which can be substantial. Then there are the lengthy government procedures that can drag things out for months or even years. Environmental impact assessments, traffic studies, these are all necessary, but they add time and complexity.
I can imagine.
And then there's the wild card community pushback. That can derail a project entirely if it's not handled carefully.
Community pushback. That's not something I would have thought about.
It's a big one. People are passionate about their communities, and they have a right to be heard. Developers need to be sensitive to those concerns and address them proactively.
Yeah, the article gave a good example of that with the environmental impact assessment.
Oh, right. It's a perfect example.
Uh-huh.
Suddenly, you're not just dealing with soil samples and construction permits. You're engaging with residents, environmental groups, local politicians, all with their own agendas and priorities.
So it's not just about knowing how to build all of. You've got to be good at dealing with people, too.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's a crucial skill for any developer.
Okay, so let's say we've considered all the risks and we're ready to move forward.
Right.
How do we actually take this raw land and turn it into a developed property?
Well, the first step is thorough market analysis. You need to understand the local demographics, existing infrastructure, and the potential demand for different types of development.
So it's like doing your homework before you jump into a big project.
Exactly. You wouldn't build a skyscraper in a town where everyone wants single-family homes.
Right. You've got to know your audience.
Precisely.
And once you've got a good understanding of the market, what's next?
Then you need to assemble a team. You'll need town planners, civil engineers, land surveyors, maybe even anthropologists.
Anthropologist. Now that's unexpected.
It's more common than you might think. They can help you understand the cultural and historical significance of the site.
Wow. So it's a lot more than just hiring a construction crew.
Oh, much more. It's about bringing together diverse expertise to create something truly special.
And speaking of creating something special, the article talks a lot about design considerations.
It does,
It
because that's where you really shape the character of the development.
Yeah, and it's not just about making things look pretty.
No, it's about creating spaces that are functional, sustainable, and enhance the quality of life for residents.
They mention things like lot dimensions, building orientation, streetscapes, transportation networks, public spaces. It's a lot to think about.
It is. But each of these elements plays a role in the overall success of the development.
It's like you're composing a symphony with all these different instruments coming together.
I love that analogy. It's about creating a harmonious and vibrant community.
Okay, but all of this sounds pretty expensive.
It can be. The article provides a comprehensive list of cost factors to consider.
Like what?
Well, you've got land acquisition, rezoning fees, infrastructure development, construction expenses, permitting fees, holding costs. And that's not even an exhaustive list.
It's enough to make your head spin.
It's a lot to digest.
Oh.
But understanding these costs is crucial for determining the feasibility of any project.
And that brings us to those 8 steps for calculating land value, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because you need to know what the land is actually worth before you can even think about developing it.
And it's not just about the size of the lot?
No, it's about identifying its highest and best use. What will yield the greatest return on investment?
So a piece of land near a busy downtown area might be worth more if it's zoned for commercial use than if it's zoned for residential.
Precisely. It's all about maximizing the potential of the land.
Okay, so we've analyzed the market, assembled our team, figured out the costs, and determined the land's value. Now what?
Well, now comes the exciting part.
Yeah.
We need to secure financing, navigate the land development approval process, and prepare the land for construction.
That sounds like a whole other deep dive in itself.
Oh, it is.
Yeah.
And we'll definitely be exploring those aspects in detail later on. But for now, let's take a quick break and let all of this information sink in. We'll be back in a jiffy to continue our exploration of raw land development. Stay tuned.
Okay, so we're back and ready to keep going.
All right, let's dive deeper.
You know, last time we were talking about all the different aspects of raw land development, and it really struck me how important design is.
Yeah, design is crucial. It's not just about aesthetics. It's about creating spaces that are functional and sustainable.
Right. It's like you're creating an entire community from scratch.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You're shaping the environment where people will live, work, and interact.
It's a huge responsibility.
It is. And it requires careful consideration of so many factors.
Yeah, the article mentioned everything from the orientation of the lots to like preserving existing trees to the width of the sidewalks.
All of those details matter. They contribute to the overall feel and functionality of the community.
Like how much sunlight a house gets.
Exactly. That's solar orientation, something the article highlighted.
Oh, yeah.
It can influence everything from energy efficiency to the placement of windows to the types of plants that will thrive in a garden.
So you're not just designing buildings, you're designing a whole ecosystem.
Precisely.
Yeah.
You're creating a living, breathing environment.
And what about the streetscape? You know, all the stuff that's like not the buildings themselves.
The article called it neighborhood identity.
Okay.
And I think that's a great way to put it. Good design creates a sense of place, a sense of belonging.
It's the difference between just a bunch of houses and a real neighborhood.
Exactly. You want people to feel connected to their surroundings.
Yeah, like you want them to walk down the street and feel happy to be there.
Right. You want to encourage people to be outside, to interact with each other, to enjoy their community.
And that goes for transportation, too.
Absolutely. The article talked a lot about prioritizing pedestrian and cyclist needs, making sure there are safe and convenient connections within the development.
So people can walk to the store or bike to the park.
Exactly. It's about creating a community that's not completely reliant on cars.
Which is a good thing considering how much we drive these days.
It is. It's about promoting a healthier, more sustainable lifestyle.
Okay, so we've talked about the fun stuff.
The design aspects.
Yeah, now let's get back to reality.
Ah, yes, the costs.
That article had that big, long list of cost factors.
It did. And it's important to consider all of them when you're assessing the feasibility of a project.
Okay, so remind me what was on that list.
We've got land acquisition, of course,
Right.
and then rezoning fees if you need to change the zoning. And then there's infrastructure development.
Like roads and sewers and stuff.
Exactly. All the essential services.
Mm.
And then you've got the actual construction costs.
Yeah, that's a big one.
It is.
Yeah.
And then there are permitting fees, holding costs.
It just goes on and on.
It does. But that's why it's so important to do your due diligence and make sure you have a solid understanding of all the costs involved.
Before you even break ground.
Precisely. Otherwise, you could end up in a financial hole.
And that brings us back to those 8 steps for calculating land value.
Right. Because you need to know what the land is actually worth before you can make any decisions about developing it.
And it's not as simple as just looking at the size of the lot,
No, it's about identifying its highest and best use.
like we talked about before.
Exactly. What's going to generate the most value?
So a piece of land near a downtown area might be perfect for high-rise apartments.
While a piece of land with scenic views might be better suited for a resort or a spa.
Okay, so it's about matching the land to the right type of development.
Precisely. It's about maximizing the potential of the land.
The article also mentions something called net ground leases.
Oh, yes. Those can be a bit complicated.
Yeah, I didn't really understand them.
Well, essentially, it's a lease agreement where the tenant leases the land but is responsible for building and maintaining the buildings on it.
So it's like renting the land instead of buying it?
Sort of.
Yeah.
But the tenant also has to invest in the construction.
So why would someone do that?
It can be a good option for developers who don't want to or can't afford to buy the land outright.
But then they're stuck with the lease payments.
Right. But they also get to benefit from the appreciation and value of the buildings they construct.
I see. So it's kind of a trade-off.
It is.
Hmm.
And valuing these leases can be tricky because you have to consider the residual value of the land at the end of the lease term.
That sounds complicated.
It can be, but it's an important tool for both landowners and developers.
Okay, so let's say we figured out all of that
Mhm.
and we're ready to move on to the next stage.
What's that?
Financing. Ah, yes. The money part. You've got to have money to make money, right?
That's the saying.
Yeah.
But securing financing for a raw land development project can be challenging.
Because it's so risky.
That's part of it. Lenders want to see that you have a solid plan, a strong team, and a good understanding of the market.
So it's not just about having a good idea
No, you need to be able to back it up with facts and figures.
and convince the lenders that you're going to make them money.
Exactly.
That's the bottom line.
Okay, so let's say we've managed to secure financing.
Right.
What happens next?
Well, then it's time to start preparing the land for construction.
So that's where the bulldozers come in.
Well, first you need the civil engineers.
Oh, right.
They'll oversee the site preparation, which involves clearing and grading the land, installing utilities and infrastructure.
Like water and electricity.
Exactly. Everything that's needed to support the development.
It's like laying the groundwork for a whole new community.
It is. And it requires a lot of precision and attention to detail.
Because any mistakes at this stage could cause problems later on. Exactly. So it's crucial to have experienced professionals on the job.
Okay, so once the site is prepped,
Then construction can begin.
that's got to be exciting to see everything start to take shape.
It is. It's like watching your vision come to life.
And once the buildings are up,
Then it's time to focus on marketing.
right, we talked about that earlier.
It's a crucial step because it's how you're going to attract buyers or tenants.
And make all that hard work pay off.
Exactly. Marketing is all about showcasing the value of your development and creating a compelling narrative that resonates with your target audience.
So it's not just about putting up a for sale sign.
No, it's about creating a brand, an identity, an experience.
You're selling a lifestyle.
Precisely.
Yeah.
You're selling the dream of what it would be like to live or work in this new community.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground today,
We have.
from site analysis to marketing.
Mm-hmm.
And it's clear that raw land development is a complex process.
It is, but it's also incredibly rewarding to see a project come to fruition.
And before we wrap up, we need to talk about rezoning,
Ah, yes, the elephant in the room.
because that can make or break a project.
Absolutely. Rezoning is essential if you want to change the designated use of a piece of land.
All right, so we're back, and I gotta say, learning about all this stuff has made me look at my own neighborhood in a whole new way.
It's amazing, isn't it? All the work and planning that goes into creating these spaces we live in.
Yeah, it really is. So before we finish up, we got to talk about rezoning.
Right, because that can be a huge hurdle for developers.
Yeah, it's like the ultimate test.
In a way it is, because you're asking local authorities to change the designated use of a piece of land. And that can be a tough sell.
Especially when you've got residents who are maybe resistant to change.
Exactly. People get attached to their neighborhoods,
Yeah.
and they want to have a say in how they evolve.
Yeah, the article talked about how important transparency is.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
You need to bring the community on board and show them that you're listening to their concerns.
Because ultimately, rezoning decisions can affect everyone who lives in the area.
That's right. It can impact traffic patterns, property values, the overall character of the neighborhood.
So it's not something to be taken lightly.
No, it's a delicate process that requires careful consideration and a lot of communication.
And probably a lot of compromise, too.
Definitely. You're not always going to get everything you want.
You've got to be willing to work with the community and find solutions that benefit everyone.
Exactly.
Mm.
It's about collaboration, not confrontation.
Well, I think we've covered just about everything there is to know about raw land development.
I think so, too.
From the initial vision to the final marketing push.
It's been quite a journey.
It really has. And I hope our listeners have learned a lot.
Me too. It's a fascinating field.
And if anyone out there is thinking about getting into this world,
Yeah.
just remember, it's not easy,
It's not for the faint of heart.
but it can be incredibly rewarding.
If you're passionate about creating something new and leaving your mark on the world,
Then raw land development might be the perfect fit for you.
just remember to do your research, assemble a great team, and always be mindful of the community you're serving.
Great advice. Well, thanks for joining me on this deep dive.
It was my pleasure.
Yeah.
And to our listeners out there, if you could rezone any piece of land in your city, what would you create and why? Think about it. Let that question spark your imagination. Maybe it'll even inspire you to embark on your own raw land development adventure. Until next time, happy developing.